Much. Okay, everybody who's here, welcome to the future of shopping. One of my favorite topics, one of my favorite things to do. I'm very much looking forward to the presentations today. So protecting your next purchase in 2023 and the future of shopping is what the main concept of the meeting today is about, the webinar today is about. So we'll take you through a bit of an introduction. We will show you how to ask questions today, introduce you to our speakers, and then we'll get underway with our 4 key questions, and then we'll have our Q&A section at the end. Next slide, please, Nabila. So I'll give you a quick introduction to myself. My name is James Palin. I'm the Regional Sales Director for Empresaria. Empresaria Group is the owner of Monroe and 7 other brands in the region. We focus on everything that's non-contingency, RPO, talent mapping, outplacement, payroll, temp, these types of services. So if you've never heard the name before, this is why. But Monroe is a name that you will know very well, certainly those of you here in Asia. So next slide, please. So the agenda today is quite simple. So we will take you through the 4 key questions after we've introduced you to our fantastic panelists today, and then we'll have our Q&A section at the end. So if you just jump onto the next slide for me, Nabila, what you'll see is how to ask questions today. So in your Zoom box, if you go into the Q&A section and add any questions you have there through the event as you're listening, as they come to mind, please do ask questions. It is important to engage. It's a great chance for you to engage with these panelists, to pick their brains, to understand anything that you want to today. Please do ask, and we will read out as many of those questions as we can at the end. If we're not able to, please don't worry. We will also share the QR codes for everybody who's talking today. So you will be able to add us all on LinkedIn. And if you need to engage further outside of today's webinar, you can. And we will also share today's webinar with you directly after the event. So if there's anything you don't see or you're not clear on, you will have all of the slides to be able to go through at the end of the event. Next slide, please. So without further ado, let me introduce you to our key speakers today. First, Mr. Rudy Adrian, who's the SVP Commercial Operations and BD at Astro. Welcome, Rudy. Nina Elaine Dizon Cabrera, the founder and CEO at Nivdella Beauty Innovations, Inc. We have Eileen Kwang, who's the GM of PUIG Derma, which is in Greater China region, and Michael Sirikul, who's the HR Director at JD.com and the former HR in FMCG sector. Welcome to all of you. Thank you very much for joining us today. Next slide, please, Nabila. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll go through each of the questions and then I'll open that up to the panelists to be able to answer. So first question today is looking at digitalization. So how has digitalization shaped the customer's shopping experience? How has digitalization shaped the customer's shopping experience? And I believe we have Eileen and Michael who will be jumping on this question. Eileen, are you out there?
Yes, here I am, James.
Hi, Eileen. Would you like to kick us off?
Sure, no problem. And good morning, everyone, and hello from Shanghai. So I would say before I share my opinion on this one, what I can share a bit is, I would say, because as a person and a business runner for mainland China, in the past 10 years is pretty much the rival of the digitalization of the whole shopping behaviors here in mainland. I can share some of the big figures that in the past 10 to 15 years, we've witnessed over 95% of the consumers in China has done the online shopping. And do not forget that for China, we have 1.4 billion people. So what you're looking at is over 1.3 billion people has done the online shopping. Talking to I would say my current area, which is on the cosmetic environment, what we had achieved last year for the total of cosmetic market on 86 million euro. We've seen the online business for the first year, starting 2022, to surpassing the offline business. So you've seen that the consumers are now more than 50% are actually spending for online. So the business turnover has completely shifting, which means for not only for the consumers, but for the business owners, that your focus for the next part, for the next 10 years, will be more and more for e-commerce and online. Regarding from consumer side, I can talk my observation and also me as a person, because in the past, when the consumer make I would say a shopping, we say the normal funnel of the shopping behavior is from aware to interest to purchase loyalty. And normally they will changing from a lot of traditional channels and then moving into maybe going to the stores, going to retail funnels, going to let's say some of the biggest cosmetic stores for Watsons in partially here. But now what we see that in the past 3 years, the decision from the consumers has been faster and faster. I would say 5 years ago, you see them starting to looking at the ads on social media, then they jump to the e-commerce platform to make the purchase. And maybe they come back when you do the data tracking or CRM loyalty program. However, nowadays, especially starting last year, when TikTok for China opened up their e-commerce practice, you see consumer can make their decision from aware to loyalty in one stop, which means they heard about your brand on TikTok, they interested, they immediately purchase. So it's becoming faster and more fascinating. You can do everything in one stop. So this is definitely one of the observation that we've seen so far. Another part, what I would like to share is, I'm sure everyone here is agree nowadays that it is more and more important to create a social community and the importance of the opinion leaders, because they are, so I would say from a daily basis that celebrity serves one part to influence the consumer behavior, but from another side that the person next to you could also influence you quite a lot, and from a more digitalized impacts. And from a business perspective, regarding this, I've seen that in the past 10 years ago, when you run a business, you probably only spend 5%, 7% on social media. But here, my planning this year for the social media and KOL investment is already 35% of my net revenue. So you've seen from a business side this huge evolution when you're done the business. And the last point I want to make is that if you're looking at the landscape, or from consumers' longer term behavior, is that they're not, so shopping behavior becoming that offline doesn't disappear, it's just served for a different purpose. Where the consumer go to offline store is more for understanding the brand and experience. However, most of the time they will make the shopping or they will make their second purchase and becoming your loyalty member from an online transaction perspective. So this is to providing some of the ideas to how can you combine online and offline from a financial perspective, but also from a marketing perspective together. So that's part of my sharing.
Fantastic. Thanks, Arlene. It's amazing to hear how many people are online shopping in China, 1.3 billion. We have 280 million people here in Indonesia. You have 1.3 billion online. It's amazing. Thank you very much for that. Very insightful. Michael, over to you.
Okay, hi from Bangkok. So I think for digitalization, it does shape the consumer behavior and shopping experience. I think it's really tremendous change, because actually I would say that for Thailand, right, if I look back last 12 years, to like 2010, when we're talking about like digitalization, actually it's really early stage. But if we look at today, actually, it's not only about changing the consumer behavior, but I think it changed entire the retail business because actually all of the customer touch point has been changed. Because okay, I give you one example like payment. Because if you're talking about like Thai people now today, everyone is already like familiar with like paying everything online or doing like cashless payment, which is like never being considered last 12 years. And also in terms of like lots of like social media has been evolved. I do agree with what Eileen sharing that like from the beginning, actually social media is like playing the role as like giving information. And then after that, people will really like transit to e-commerce, whether like platform or whatever. And then now you can see the mix of like social commerce that now is already like for the consumers, they're already being evolved and educated. So this is one of the things that for all the brand, the retail, all the product have to really adapt to the change of this because the media is also changed. That in the past 10 years, I would say that in Thailand, definitely like everyone will really spending 70% on the conventional media like TV or like newspapers. But now today, we can see like the shifting is going to the social media and also like other digital platform. And also for the delivery, because actually this is also changed for the consumer shopping experience. When the past, when the online shopping behavior not yet being adopted, people still have no idea that when they click on the virtual platform and pay the cash, and then how they would get the product, how many days the product would be authentic or not, and if the product has something wrong, how they can really apply the after sales. So I think this is really like changing the entire of like the journey that the consumer have changed from the digital. And also one thing is clearly see also that if you look at like last 2 years, that when the pandemic is really like hit, right? Definitely like most of the offline store and like conventional shopping is being like problem because people cannot really go out because of the pandemic. So people really shifting to have more transaction during that time. And actually for some product, because you know, in my previous company, I used to be with RB before, and one of the portfolio that is really like have good sales is Durex for the sexual well-being product. In the past, actually for Thai people, we are not really like that comfortable to go to the store and okay, just buy this kind of category. So the online is really like what they are preferred. But during the pandemic, actually, it seems to be that everyone is adopted to buy every category, regardless of what format. So this is one thing that actually can say that how digitalization is really like changed for the consumer behavior shopping experience. That would be what I would share.
Fantastic. Thank you, Michael. Very insightful. Yeah, I'm also one of those people who started shopping a lot online during the pandemic. It was a big shift, but I think we all experienced that at the same time. Thanks a lot for all of your insights. Okay, so on to question number, okay, let's just run through some of the quick highlights before we jump on to question number 2. I won't read all of these out. Again, we will share the slides with you, so you can go through this after, but just to give you some of the highlights. So certainly an increase in the use of mobile shopping, a wider variety of payment options now out there, and a lot of competition between those companies to get us using their platforms, which is good for us. Lots of sales, lots of discounts, increased influencer marketing. We see a lot of that. I'm based in Bali. We seem to only have influencers over here. Live commerce and shoppertainment, and offline became an experience center of online transactions. Brick and mortar stores more and more becoming a place to check out products before you buy them online is what we're seeing. Okay, there we go. Some key highlights for you. Jumping into question number 2 now. What are the best business practices when it comes to utilizing data to achieve business optimization? So what are the best business practices when it comes to utilizing data to achieve business optimization? We've got all of the panelists who will be speaking on this. Who would like to jump in first?
Okay, I can
Rudy?
share my thought on this.
Fantastic. Yeah, so Rudy, for everybody, Rudy is feeling a little bit under the weather today. So if you hear him coughing or sniffing,
I apologize for that.
you know why.
At least my voice is deeper now while I'm having my flu. Okay, so about utilizing the data to drive a better business impact, from my experience, we used to be able to collect limited data because, the capability was limited. And to make it more useful, usually the data is just as simple as being able to retain the customer. So for retention purposes, as we move into a period where the data is becoming richer, then we are also enhancing in terms of the people and the system. So we have an enhanced analytical capability. From there, then what we are able to do is to create or develop based on the consumer behavior. What are the channels they're going to? What kind of assortment that they're interested in? What pricing, timing when they buy? So, in my opinion, the difference between before and now and in the future is moving from a more active as a business to be proactive, because the goal is to create with this data is to create a predictive marketing. So creating the expectation and then making sure that we are meeting the expectation of the consumer. So that's how we are looking into data to be more predictive in terms of the consumer point of view.
Fantastic. Thank you, Rudy. Who would like to jump in next?
Okay, maybe I can coming in. I think in terms of like the customer data, right? I think I think this is like what is the norm that people really like consider that for all the online business, because every transaction is being like doing on the online, and actually the data is like floating around like that. But definitely, the challenge is not about only like how much you can collect it, but how you can really like refine it. Because actually, again, one of the things that is completely different from data collection from the offline retail, I would share from the retail perspective. Because when you go to shopping mall, right, you would have like your member card, which is like your name, and register everything is your name and everything is your detail. And when you buy or you purchase, definitely you use your own membership. But for the online, actually, this is what we also learned from like within the JD Group, that like for Thailand, sometimes actually for one account or one user, technically it's being used like for the whole family. So with this, actually, when you're looking at their like shopping pattern, definitely it would really be difficult to translate that. Okay, this Mr. A, they're spending like 5 days to buy diapers, but every once a month that they would buy like household product or like hand tools, which is when you are going through the stage of like, okay, you want to really how to train your CRM program to really retain them, or even like drive more impulse. Actually, this is really the challenge. And also another side is like how to really know that your customer is really your customer also, because I think this is really one of the challenge, because we have to admit that from the early stage of the e-commerce or the digital commercial is coming with the mindset of like giving the best deal with a lower price. But of course, it's really giving the privilege to the customer to buy a good product. But at the same time, actually, it's also attract the resellers to really come and okay, yes, I can buy a lot and do the resale. So technically, I think this is one of the challenge that it's about that, okay, how you really refine the data and actually how you really utilize it. And also, I think another thing is that most of the platform is really challenged right now about like using the data is like how you really refine your operation. Because the thing is, the shopping mall, when you drive, right, you go to shopping mall, you would not spend like 2 minutes buying stuff and going back home. You would really walk around, eating or do other activities. But for the online platform, actually, this is a challenge. How you can really creating the stickiness of the consumer to be on your platform longer. Okay, they might browse to one .com or one platform, and then okay, today I want to buy milk and then diapers and baby toys online. But after they check out, they might leave because actually they would really spending more time on the social media. But I think this is really like the next step, that how the company that can really refine the data and then actually creating something that creating the journey to sticky, creating more stickiness for the customers to spending more time, and also giving better chance for driving more impulse purchase. So I think this is really the next step for how to really utilize and maximize the benefit of data. Yeah.
Thank you, Michael. Fantastic points there. Nina and Eileen, I believe you're both going to jump in on this question as well. Nina, you're next on my screen. Do you want to jump in next?
Yeah, sure, of course. So for our brands, we started very, very small. So the data gathering tools that Rudy and Michael were referring to earlier, they were not available to us. But being a community-driven brand, we were able to gather data on a more personal level. So as a brand, we were able to ask our consumers, where do you want to shop our products? What kind of products do you want to buy from us? Where do you think should we open new branches? And those kinds of questions. So we gather their answers and we use those data to make data-driven decisions. And that's as simple as it can get for us.
Thank you, Nina. Eileen, over to you.
Sure. I would say one interesting practice we've done for one of my brand Uriage in the past, because I think we're at the stage that we have certain business size and transaction from a certain level of consumer, but we try to broaden this consumer base and attract more consumer to use our brand. So we've been very lucky to have the backend data from Alibaba. What we've seen is that, okay, on one side, for example, we had 10,000 basic consumer data. So we deep dive in what the other brands they were purchasing. So, you know, like nowadays, everyone is talking about, we want to attract Gen Z, but there are so many different categories of Gen Z, and they're so big, and you need to track them to make it more relevant. So one of the, I would say, marketing decision can be beneficial from this is that you look into the consumer who bought Uriage brand, but at the same time, maybe they also purchase a certain value of toys, maybe the purchase of certain value of the other products and the other brands. And then we try to do a crossover campaign with some of these brands to generate more consumers from that. So it's more relevant, but beneficial for both of the brand to build, you know, the connections between the similar foundation of the groups. So I would say that's one of the practice we've done utilizing consumer data.
Fantastic. Thanks, Eileen. Okay, so we've seen predictive marketing, the use of our data, collecting data seems to be a huge thing at the moment. I think from my understanding, a lot of these e-commerce companies and social media platforms have somewhere in excess of 10,000 data points on each of us, which can be used for knowing what we're going to shop, how we're going to shop. But it's also interesting to hear from Michael that if we're sharing platforms and we're sharing accounts, it makes it very, very difficult for them to do this, and how will they get around that? Some very good points there. Thank you for that. So some of the key highlights. So obviously we touched on personalization, which will remain critical. Very important for Nina's brand from what she was saying, and making that experience very relevant to the consumer is very, very important. Data protection, this is something that's huge at the moment, obviously with all of the hacks and things that are happening globally. Making sure that your data is protected, making sure that you feel secure when you're online and shopping is very, very important. And perhaps even knowing what data you're sharing is something that a lot of consumers are interested in. And AI, so artificial intelligence, machine learning, algorithms which are able to know what we're doing and what we're wanting to do, sometimes even before we know. And obviously with the advent of quantum computing coming along, you can imagine this taking a huge step forward in the future as well. So some of the key highlights there. On to the next question. So question number 3, what are the challenges e-commerce businesses will face in 2023? So what are the challenges that we see ahead for next year, and everything that we're seeing in the market and hearing on the news at the moment? So Rudy and Nina, I'll hand over to you both Pat Rudy, over to you.
Okay, thank you. I think post-pandemic shifted the behavior of consumer, but I agree what Aileen mentioned earlier. I think the challenge is the customer expectation is increasing. You know, they want self-service, they want faster fulfillment, they want greener packaging. So basically, the challenge for businesses, both from retail and from the brand itself, is how do we develop and maintain a shorter shopping journey? Meaning, you know, you can still play pricing, but it's not sustainable because you will be bleeding in terms of your margin. Then you need to create a stronger proposition. How do we differentiate between, you know, if I am a brand, then I need to exist in all the platform. Then there will be no differentiation. If I'm the platform, then like in Indonesia, it's quite unique because you have 6 platforms. They all give the same proposition. So how do we create the differentiation? What is the differentiation in terms of the assortment that is shown to the consumer? What is the purchase proposition? So creating that kind of differentiation will be the challenge to capture, you know, not only new shopper, but also to make sure that the existing shopper will shop back to the platform and to the brand. Also consideration of direct versus marketplace. Which one is, you know, I look into the impact of my cost and my profitability. Which one give me more data? The other one is in Indonesia specifically the challenge of cross-border, because it's cheaper to buy cross-border, but you know the process is not that easy. And then the last one, I think a lot of brand, a lot of platform or e-commerce are talking about the seamless experience, omni-channel. Is it real omni-channel or is just multi-channel retail? So which one is being developed? So the one that can create a seamless experience to a omni-channel model might be having a potential to win the market. So I think those are my 2 cents on the challenges. Not only 2023, that's already started this year in Q3 or anyway. So thank you.
Thanks, Rudy. Nina, over to you.
Yeah, so for me, the top 3 issues that e-commerce businesses will face in 2023 are number 1, inflation and economic downturn. So currently in the Philippines, we have really been feeling this. Lately, the economy of the entire world has been fluctuating. The headlines of recent news have been filled with the topic of skyrocketing costs of goods and services, which affects e-commerce businesses overall. And we as businesses and brand owners should prepare for its reality and eventual consequences. Today, we are seeing the highest inflation rise since the 1980s, which in return causes consumer and retailers concerns since the prices are constantly increasing. Continuous inflation affects consumers' behavior by them cutting back on non-essential goods, resorting to competing brands, and even reverting to in-store shopping. Given that price is one of the main drivers of overall inflation, our consumers may actually resort to redirecting their budgets to essential household and familiar goods, such as food, electric bills, and many other priorities essential for survival. So for Colourette, how are we addressing this? In Colourette, we pride our brand in being affordable while providing the best quality of products to our consumers. This is where we built our brand upon, and it's what we were always known for. The quality of our product, the close engagement with our supporters and consumers, and the culture of inclusivity established our identity. And I believe that this is one of the many reasons why, despite the economic fluctuations happening lately, our consumers have been consistent in supporting our products. Number 2, the second issue is the fashion of sustainability. So as time goes by, the fashion of sustainability becomes more important to the consumers. Rudy is right. They're looking for more green options, more sustainable options. So especially among the millennials, the Gen Zs, and the Generation Alpha, green commerce is on the rise. Despite the skyrocketing inflation, consumers' behavior seems to lean forward, spending a bit more to buy more sustainable brands. So the fashion of sustainability, as time goes by, becomes So for Colorette, we aim to become a full vegan brand by 2025. And actually, one of our top considerations in product development is the value that we bring to the table, the value for money. Because right now, consumers are looking for longevity, high quality products, and of course, sustainability over hype. And the third issue here is consistency across channels. So because Rudy said right now there are like 6 sales platforms across the board in Indonesia. The same goes in the Philippines. Like we are a progressing country. So improving our relationship with our consumers and customers also mean that we must maintain that and ensure consistent experience across all of our channels. Maintaining online presence requires brands to be present on various platforms, say Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, or WhatsApp, which in the case of Colorette here in the Philippines, we are present among all those, including social commerce such as TikTok and e-commerce platforms such as Lazada and Shopee. So we as brand owners should ensure that our customers are able to consume our products with ease across these channels with less or even without difficulties and inconsistencies. In the case of Colorette, we have recently entered the wonders of social commerce through TikTok. We do regular live sellings where we directly engage with our consumers as they consume and buy our products. This business method did not just increase our sales dramatically, but also brought us closer to our valued customers because they felt like they were connected to us, like they were speaking to them directly. Recently, we were also able to donate a portion of our income from our TikTok sales to victims of the recent super typhoon here in the Philippines, which in turn also makes our consumers involved in the CSR projects of our brands. So I guess that's it for us.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Nina. Some great points there from everybody. So let's just jump into the highlights, please, Nabila. So a few of the key highlights, again, we will share these slides with everybody, but just in short, rising inflation and economic uncertainty has really impacted consumers. This is something that we're seeing in England a lot. Recently talking with my mum there, she mentioned that there's a lot of families now have the choice between heating or eating, and it's a scary prospect, and it's really driving consumer behavior across the market. Sustainability and green commerce is on the rise as people get more and more aware of environmental issues. Multi-channel or omni-channel, as Rudy touched on, will be the way forward. And high-end brands versus middle and low-end brands. Looking at what consumers want, need, or what economic environments will drive them to buy. So some interesting key highlights there. Thank you again to the speakers. And on to our final question for our session today. Looking at what hiring trends and skills do companies within the e-commerce sector need in 2023? So what hiring trends and skills do companies within the e-commerce sector need in 2023? So we'll jump over to Rudy and Michael. Michael, do you want to lead us off this time?
Okay, all right. So about the hiring trend for 2023, I think before that, definitely, I think everyone has seen like how the market is really changed for all the tech business across the world. And I think it really making uncertainty in this industry for like both like employer and employee. But again, I think it's about like the transition of like, because we have to really admit also in past 10 years for all the tech industry, actually the speed of like penetrate is really like really high compared to other industry, because we're talking about like 10x, 30x, 50x from lots of like companies. So it's also the reason of like the hiring is really growing very fast. Some company will start from like 100, and then after 5 years it become like 1,000 or 2,000. And definitely we can see like most of the big company like tech company in China is already surpassed like 400,000 staff in one country already. So I think the thing is well, I think the trend, the speed of hiring would be slower, because now it's more to moving toward the efficiencies, and also it's about the consideration about the right size and the right structure of the company. Because in the past 2 years, I would say that if from my perspective for Southeast Asia and Thailand specific, with the pandemic, actually it's kind of like having the tailwind to really push the transaction, the order, the consumer, the acquisition, everything is going faster than predict. And then with that, most of the players would really invest and expand really fast. But now it's already, I would call it's endemic. So people still living with it, but yes, they have evolved in terms of like shopping behavior that disrupt the business. And then it's coming to the hiring momentum. Actually, it would shift from like quantity to quality. And actually, I would also say that the trend would be that it would be the time to really define from the organization what is really a must talent to have and what is nice talent to have. Something maybe is very like technical or very specific skill. Yes, it's really like difficult to find in the market, but it would be the question that how frequent or how impact of not have this person in-house would impact the business. Because I think it would be really moving toward on that, okay, looking for the role that have combination of tech and commercial, because we have to admit also, because I was for me, I coming from 10 years of FMCG, which is like, I build my commercial environment experience. We are growing with number, but when we looking at another territory like digital and tech, it's going more with like more like feasibility, possibility, and then trial and error. Right? So I think now is the time that is have to find the way the talent who are understand the dynamic of the digital, the tech, the speed, the penetration, but of course also coming with the financial discipline, coming with commercial sense on, okay, it's not about only invest and then expand and then growing only the transaction, but how to grow also the P&L. So I think this would be the hiring trend that I think the tech industry still will come with more opportunity for quicker like position, but the speed would be slower, and also in terms of like the aggressiveness of expansion would be also slower.
Fantastic. Thanks, Michael. Just before we hand over to Rudy, just a quick reminder for everybody out there, we've got several questions coming through, which is great to see. If you do have any burning questions, topics that you want to understand further on, please do add your questions to the Q&A box, and we will get through as many of those as we can at the end. Any ones we can't answer, we will pass on, and they will be able to engage with you directly at a later date. But last but not least, Pat, Rudy, over to you.
Thank you. So in the past 6 months in Indonesia, we've been seeing an increasing talent pool because of various layoff from the tech startup, especially. I see 3 things from this. Number one, in terms of the talent pool itself, we see a gap. The price has not been very good. The salary level compared to the experience and the capability, there's a huge gap. So to take talent, for me, myself, when we trying to hire people, we look into 3 things: whether the person have the adaptability, the drive, and the persevere. We see that there's a gap on those 3 based on the talent that we have in Indonesia. The second one, the rising of, we used to select between generalists and specialists. Now to be a marketer, you're not only good with branding, but you need to be able to do digital marketing. You need to be able to have sales acumen. You need to be able to understand P&L. So moving to a model where we're trying to find a generalist specialist, so have the capability not only in one field, but other things also. The third one is we see that because the good talent becoming more expensive, and we need to look whether we hire for short term or long term, because the deal is right now, people who move, for example, when I was in Racket, what was missing was they're looking for challenges different than my generation, because I'm looking for settle. I'm trying to settle. Of course, I want to achieve and perform more, but they're looking for acknowledgement. They're looking for something that they can look forward to. So when we are hiring for long term, make sure that the planning, the succession pipeline, the development is well prepared, even before the person is on board. So those are the 3 things that I experienced so far.
A generalist specialist, that is a new one. So that's something.
Yeah, another one is right now to hire people and say we work 5 days a week at the office is not making people interested to work with us.
No, I think Elon Musk is realizing that quite quickly with Twitter. But yeah, there's a lot of people whose ideal of work has changed a lot. And I think, you know, certainly for the better for a lot of people. Yeah, it's fantastic to see this, that the changes in hiring, how people are hiring, why people are hiring, companies getting smarter with their interview processes and then retaining those staff with all of this competition in the market. It's getting more and more difficult. So companies and individuals have to get smarter and smarter around not just what people need, but what they want. And it's a very, very interesting time. Obviously, if anyone needs help with their hiring solutions, whatever they may be, please get in touch with us. Empresaria and Munro are here to help, whether you're upsizing or downsizing. This is an area that we love. So please get in touch. Okay, let's touch on the highlights, and then we are over to our Q&A section. So key highlights, what we're seeing here. So generalist versus specialist. It's a new term coming out, but having those convertible skills and, you know, what we used to call wearing multiple hats is very, very important now. That kind of entrepreneurial type of mindset and work focus is more and more in demand. Certainly what we're seeing from our side. Specific blends of skills are in demand. Retention remains a big challenge with so many jobs out there, the advent of LinkedIn and its massive adoption now globally, changing job, finding new jobs, getting new offers. The top talent are in very, very high demand. So it creates bidding wars. How do you keep those people at your business? It's a big question. And finally, remote hiring will stay in trend. So it really opens up possibilities for companies when they don't just need to hire people who are in their vicinity. Being able to hire people remotely brings on lots of new challenges as well. How do you build culture? How do you build retention when you're not around people every day? There's lots of new problems that come from that as well. But some really interesting key highlights there. So we'll jump over now to the Q&A section. So firstly, just wanted to say a big thank you to all of our speakers. Thank you for your fantastic insight and for spending your time with us today. So for the Q&A, Tiffany, I believe you've got some questions that you can read out.
All right, sounds good. We do have quite a few questions here. I'll be reading the first one. This one is from Pa Edu, and this will be directed to Pa Rudy. His question is that we know FMCG have different characteristics in digital sectors as the online penetration is still very small and with the very short runway of e-commerce player due to tight capital market. How do e-commerce players could rapidly increase significantly those consumer online penetration? Otherwise, if there is players due to exiting the market impacted by short of cash in the market. His view is that it was a marathon, but now every player is asked to sprint much faster because of investment market conditions. So the question is very clear and precise. I guess I will be having the spotlight on you, Pa Rudy.
Okay. This is more like a request for consultation than a question. So, okay. So from my experience, I think because Indonesia is quite unique, the growth of e-commerce has been coming not only from what we call a pure player, but it's coming from the marketplace. So those marketplace sellers are the one that driving the economic in e-commerce. But the way the organization has been designed, especially in where I used to be, it was designed as offline and online. They don't collaborate; they actually compete with each other. So when they enter the platform, they become a retailer, then they depend on the retailer capability. In fact, when you're a FMCG company, you probably have network of distributor because Indonesia is quite challenging with the islands. But we don't utilize that capability. We don't use the marketplace seller to bring more customer to online because we see it as if I'm an e-commerce unit in FMCG, then I only manage official store. You need to make what we consider as enemy as our partner. So we grow with them together because we also help them to grow in their area because they already have loyal user in their area. Why don't we utilize it? The question will be coming from the top leader. can we do something like that when we collaborate between offline and online? We don't differentiate because it's one company. So I think the mindset need to be changed in most of the FMCG in Indonesia.
All right, thank you so much for the quick consultation, Pak Rudi. And then we do have the second question. This one is being directed to Miss Tina. One of our consultants from Philippines is a fan of yours, and she's asking how TikTok paved the way for Coloret's growth.
Hello, Christine. So I started TikTok during the COVID-19 lockdown back in 2020. So I'm one of the, if not the first local CEO in the Philippines to share my entrepreneurship life on TikTok. The platform gave me the opportunity to raise brand awareness, to become a mentor to budding entrepreneurs, and to share my progress with my audience on a more personal level. As my follower count increased and my engagement increased, so did our sales. In 2020 alone, we were the top local makeup brand for e-commerce platforms. We got recognized as top 3 makeup brand for the entire Southeast Asia for 11/11, and we also got a record-breaking revenue for both 11/11 and 12/12 campaigns on both Lazada and Shopee. Fast forward to today, as I've mentioned earlier, we continue to reap the benefits of being connected to our consumers. Coloret is actually not just a beauty brand, but also a social and politically aware brand, where we fight various causes when it comes to women empowerment, gender equality. We fight against disinformation, especially during the recent national elections, among many other things. And as time goes by, it just proves that social commerce is changing the game. With the integration of social commerce, especially TikTok being now a one-stop shop for creators and sellers such as myself, TikTok is offering the best of both worlds. So I guess my boredom, I got to optimize it into Coloret being one of the top local brands in the country.
All right, sounds good. Thank you so much. And then the third question, this is from an anonymous attendee. They are asking, are they generational differences on shopping behavior? Perhaps, Eileen, do you want to tackle this one?
Sure. I think this is actually a very broad question because, well, I believe everyone nowadays for the e-commerce and probably especially for a brand like Nina's brand, what we're targeting is a younger generation. They're savvy on digital and they're, I would say their behavior shifting. They're one of also another observation, what I've seen is they might not be very loyal. So for those generation, they go fast into loving your brand, spread out on social media, but then they can be also easily shifting to another brand. So this is one of the highlights, what I've seen of the, I would say the younger generation, relatively younger generation. And however, we've also seen, well, I probably only can represent here for mainland, that for the generation that currently now age from, I would say 28 to 35, if it's not 40, what these generation, they growing up in a less diverse environment here in China. So what they've been influenced is probably still Western more than local. They've more focused on more of the high-end luxurious experience. So what's the brands or experience that they're shopping for is still the more sophisticated, more dominant big names. So that's what I seen for the middle ground. And then for the older generation, well, actually it's quite interesting if I have to describe them, because in their generation, when they born, there's no such influence, at least for China, because back then, 30 years ago, China is still more of a, I would say, a rural area. So they've not been influenced on this at all. So what they are now shopping at, if I see my mom as an example, is that they will go to some of the supermarket or hypermarket and they shop on shelf the cheapest one, and digitalization for them is an entertainment and nothing more for shopping. But I would say back to here, is that this is how it's going on for China. What I've seen is that maybe when the generation nowadays is only 18 to 20 years old, who's so savvy on digital, 20 years later, when they are 40 or 50, and a completely consumer dynamic, when you're talking about age, could be a completely different case. So yeah, some of my observations.
All right, thank you so much, Eileen, for the insights. We do have one interesting question from Raymond Cristianto. He is asking, what do you think about sales driven in terms in metaverse? As a marketer, is 2023 will be the right time to drive in metaverse market? I'll open this to anyone.
Not sure if metaverse still interesting in 2023.
And why is that, Pak?
No, but for me, based on my experience, look at the stage of metaverse itself, because look at the impact to the business, because in metaverse, it's a trial. For me, it's a trial. Be there first, but the objective is more to gain awareness and make people be interested to know about the brand, but less on sales. But let's look at the progress of metaverse next year, because it's still something that very niche, very, very, very niche. And it can create excitement because you're the first there. But what's the business impact being first? So it's more a test and learn for me at that time.
I think we just need to look at Meta's stock price to understand how popular metaverse is at the moment. Doesn't seem to be having huge adoption, does it?
Yeah, I think similar to the hype of NFT, right? They see it as for everyone, but for me, it's art. You collect art with NFT, but it's not something that you trade, in my opinion.
Yeah, crypto, that whole world is not in a good position at the moment. After its initial highs, it certainly crashed down a bit.
All right, I guess I'll be throwing just one more question. This is going to be a final question. Apologize if I didn't get to read yours, but this is a question coming from Sladen. I hope I read it correctly. So he's saying that apart from inflation, how risky do the panelists see the increasing household debt in Southeast Asian countries, especially Thailand, when it comes to true purchasing behaviors? So I guess I'll direct this to you, Mike.
Okay, I think this is a very interesting question, and actually it's also very tricky because theoretically, when we see like the slowdown in terms of like the economic and also in terms of like the rising of inflation and also other stuff that would really like influence people to be more hesitate of like purchase. But the fact is, I would say that for Thailand, actually we are like in the stage of like recession for more than a year already with a lot of the factors. But when we look at like each of like category or like even like subcategory, it's very interesting that of course on the daily like household consumption, actually people trend is really like not really going toward the premiumization. They are leaning toward for more like value for money. They are shifting from some of the more lifestyle brand to just only the functional brand. As I can see, lots of like consumer product is really shifting to that side. But on the other hand, actually for like lifestyle luxury product is growing. So actually, because recently we have conducted our research on the consumer segmentation, and actually it's very interesting that it seems like from the economic like recession and also like with this kind of that impact the household debt, people spending on the essential product in a more economic manner, but they still willing to spending a lot to fulfill their personal need or kind of like celebrating because most of the luxury sector is growing. Yeah, so I always said that now for this situation, definitely is very fluctuated. So I think every brand and also every retail need to really refine very carefully on which category to really focus, and also how the portfolio that would focus. Either you are going to focus on like premiumization or just like launching something with more like value for money.
All right, thank you so much, Mike, for the question. I guess that's it for the Q&A. Thank you so much for everyone who have participated to ask us questions. Apologize if we haven't answered any of yours. I'll give it back to you, James, for this.
Fantastic. Yeah, that is it. Thank you very much to all of our panelists, Rudy, Eileen, Michael, Nina. Hopefully you can all see the QR codes on the screen. So if you get out your phones, you'll be able to scan those and link in directly with all of us. But thank you very much for today. It's been very insightful, very interesting. And we look forward to seeing either positively or rather nervously what 2023 has to offer for us. But thanks again to everybody. We've actually finished about a minute early, which is fantastic timing. So thank you very much to Tiffany and Nabila for all of your organization putting this event together. Been fantastic. And thank you very much for letting me be your host today. That's it. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.